to announce the launch of our AIGA Professional Foundation Certificate, which is part of our larger AIGA Professional Design Certification. So to talk about the online certificate portion of the certification program, the online courses, I am joined by Wendy Nuttelman, who is a senior editor at MindEdge. They were partners with AIGA on the development of this content. The certificate has 4 courses as a part of it. There's the Standards of Professional Practice, Business for Designers, Law for Designers, as well as Design Foundations. So Wendy, great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit from your perspective as the editor working on this content, a little bit of the themes, the main themes, and the through line between this content and the course?
Sure, absolutely. So as you mentioned, there are 4 courses. The business course really goes into kind of the overview of key business concepts, looking at leadership styles and methods, project management, coaching, negotiation, these kinds of key leadership skills, as well as some of the financial planning skills and analysis that entrepreneurs, small business owners would need to know from a design perspective. And then Standards of Professional Practice is looking at some of the really important concepts like ethics, accessibility, diversity and inclusion, the sort of things that designers would like to have a foundational knowledge of. There's also Law for Designers. So that goes into things like intellectual property, sort of looking at the different types of intellectual property, legal protections for intellectual property rights, as well as understanding things like Section 508 and ADA compliance, accessibility laws and guidelines, and then different types of contracts, such as non-disclosure agreements and contracts for independent contractors and employees. And then finally, the Design Foundations course, which is looking at the key design principles and practices that designers need to know about today. So that kind of covers some of the principles, tools, and best practices for the field of design.
Thank you so much for that overview. And to just zoom out a little bit and talk about the why behind our partnership and this course, the goal of this certificate and this certification program is to accelerate the development of designers, from designers who learned the craft of design, whether in a design program at school or informally or on their own, and to help them more quickly become professional designers in the sense of equipping designers with these design adjacent skills that you've mentioned in your overview, Wendy, of understanding the basics of intellectual property or an introduction to team management, all of these things that designers will need to know that are sort of the expanded craft of being a professional designer. I'm curious also to learn about how the format of these online courses work. Can you tell us about the MindEdge format?
Yeah, absolutely. So the courses are built with a combination of written content, videos where subject matter experts in the field provide information and examples and explanations of the content. And then there are also interactive elements like games, multiple choice questions, reflection questions. You'll see case studies where you look at real world examples of how this content comes into play and practice really using it. And then finally, there's an assessment at the end of each course to test your knowledge.
Yeah, I think the curation of the content as well as the assessment are 2 of the things that really set this content and this experience apart from resources that you could find online, right? Some of it you might be able to find for free online, or it might exist in other courses, but there's an interactivity to this where you can still follow along at your own pace. There's things to read, there's graphics, there's short video segments, but then those assessments really make sure that you've gotten some of the key points, right? And you can actually show that you have taken this course and it's not just you've watched an online video and say you've finished it at the end.
Exactly.
So I'm curious about your experience putting this together as someone who's coming from outside of design, but as someone who's created courses on a lot of different topics with MindEdge. Like, what were some of the interesting insights that you got curating this course and putting it together?
Well, it was really fascinating because a lot of these topics I've written about before, like leadership styles and accounting and so forth. But I really got an idea of how designers apply these concepts. And we relied a lot on content from AIGA and other design professionals, the subject matter experts who are kind of coming in and giving us examples of how to really tailor this material for designers. What do designers need to know? So that was really fascinating for me, taking it from just kind of a broad, general perspective and getting sort of the more design-minded take on these topics.
Yeah, I think for me, being a designer myself and going through the course while we were developing it together, I felt like, especially the case studies, really contextualized it, even though they're fictionalized examples, but they're definitely based on real life situations, whether it's like an ethical dilemma or it's a potential intellectual property issue that designers are dealing with in their real life work. And having those examples that are design centered or centered around creative professionals, I thought it was really helpful. So it's not just like a general finance course or a general ethics course, but it's really grounded in these sort of experiences that we might come across. So to get into the nuts and bolts of how these courses work, we've talked about the format already, but can you give our viewers an idea of like how long the courses take usually for people to finish?
Yeah, so each course is a little bit different. The business course, for example, it's a longer one. It has 3 modules that are separated into leadership and management topics, business strategy, and the third one is accounting and finance. And that course takes around 12 hours to do. The standards of professional practice takes about 4 hours. That one's just 3 modules that cover ethics, accessibility, and diversity and inclusion. And then the law for designers course is 3 hours. So you'll have, again, 3 modules that cover intellectual property, accessibility, and employment law. And then the 4th course, the Design Foundations course, which of course you can take them in any order, but that one is another longer one. It's 12 hours. So that goes into design principles. The second module is the role of research. And finally, design methods and tools. And they all conclude with an assessment.
Yeah, and to reiterate, the courses are asynchronous, so you can take them at your own pace, maybe one at a time, or you could do multiples at the same time if you'd like, and you have several months to complete those courses, so it's not like 12 hours all at once.
Yeah, I really recommend taking your time, and it's great to do it. It's great that it's self-paced, so you can really go through at your own speed and kind of go back and forth and review things as needed.
Yeah, and I found the assessments really helpful as well. I literally have not taken a test since college, but I thought it was really nice to have those as like just to help remind me of the topics that were covered, because there's so much there, and just having those questions that you have to answer, and then you can keep taking them until you get them right. But it really helped me with making sure that everything kind of sank in. So to give you a preview of some of the video content with our subject matter experts in the course, we've prepared a short trailer for you to check out.
If you're looking to choose a career path in design, the primary skill that you need is to be able to learn new things all the time.
Designers are often required to wear many hats: innovator, leader, and problem solver, just to name a few.
So I think a good design leader needs to understand people and have empathy, thinking specifically about the relationship between the design leader and their design team.
Design strategy is really the alignment of the needs, desires, and aspirations of users, of of consumers, of customers, patients, students.
So the goals of accessibility standards are to ensure that everyone can have access. Those guidelines and those standards are saying, hey, we are looking to make things perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust.
The role of a designer in marketing comes down to being the translator. No one loves to be sold to and have information kind of shoved down your throat. But also at the same time, you need to meet your company's goals.
I regularly have the privilege of working with designers and other types of creators. What you do is develop intellectual property. What's always important is understanding the basics of how to protect what you create.
So in my own design practice, which is parallel to my work at AIGA, I started a design studio called FUSA, and we really talked about our work as community-centered design. And as that relates to ethics, it's thinking beyond just the individual user or the individual customer.
A strong network. I think the why is pretty obvious, I don't know, at least for me in my world. And that is, I don't think I've ever gotten any gig or project or even a job offer that was not related to people who knew me or knew me through people who knew me. Whenever you know what you stand for and what your voice is as a designer, and you participate within that world, opportunities will arise.
There's this whole concept in martial arts where every year you have to become a white belt again and be a beginner for a period of time. And to be a designer is to do that because you're always walking into a new project, a new client, a new domain, something you haven't done before, and you have to learn very quickly.
The goal of this course is to equip designers with the foundational knowledge necessary to make a positive impact with their designs and in their organizations. So let's get started.